When Kelsea Ballerini dropped Subject to Change late last year, I remember A, really enjoying that album, and B, saying in my review that I wanted to see Kelsea lean into her undignified side and keep showing that kind of darker self-reflection in her songwriting that we got in little glimmers on songs like Doing My Best.
I was friends with a pop star. I put him on track 4, but wish I could take it back. I would have never asked if I knew we wouldn't talk anymore.
Well, I must say, I absolutely got my wish granted with Kelsea Ballerini's new EP and short film called Rollin' Up the Welcome Mat, which is a pretty amazing piece of art. Kelsea Ballerini dropped this 6-song EP, and really it's 5 songs with a little interlude in there, on Valentine's Day, and it was quite an epic move because this is absolutely a divorce album, quite explicitly so. It's right there with Carly Pearce's 29 as a very honest, effective, vulnerable, sometimes like cringe-inducing reflection on divorce. And in case you didn't know, Kelsea Ballerini was married for 5 or 6 years to fellow country star Morgan Evans, and after they announced their split, Morgan Evans released a song called Over For You, which was asking the question, how long has it been over for you? Kind of suggesting that he was blindsided by the divorce. Kelsea answers that question quite directly with this EP. And I'd love to be very highbrow and say that the salacious drama side of things doesn't make a difference to the great music, but it absolutely makes it a more compelling work of art. I mean, here you have a star asking how long has this been over for you, and then you have another star responding to that very publicly. Don't act like you don't find that interesting. Okay, this is editor Grady coming in voiceover mode to say that even though I only shot this review 3 days ago, somehow all hell has broken loose on the media front when it comes to this divorce. Kelsea Ballerini went on Call Her Daddy and opened up a lot about the split. Morgan Evans then made a response on Twitter. There are so many headlines, and there's cheating allegations, and there's all sorts of things that are stewing. And if nothing else, I feel validated in my statement that yes, people are in fact interested in drama. Just want to say, yes, I've seen all that stuff. I don't want to get dragged down into the muck and analyze that kind of gossip, but I feel like the review stands on its own. Sonically, this EP, it's not playing with the kind of 90s country sounds that we were getting on Subject to Change. And it's not anything like her current single at radio, If You Go Down, I'm Going Down Too, which I still think it's badass that that's even at radio. Instead, on Rollin' Up the Welcome Mat, this is very ambient, dreamy, sad girl pop. And I don't even mean that disparagingly. That's always a side of Kelsea that she's been quite open, she wants to explore. And certainly it was a venue through which she was able to be, I don't know, just way more down to earth and weird and stream of consciousness in her songwriting. And so I love that. Now, 3 of these songs Kelsea wrote by herself. The other 3 were co-writes with Alyssa Vanderheim, the other producer of this album. And then Kelsea also wrote and directed the short film that goes with this, which is essentially 5 music videos kind of all intertwined into one. I think the way that they did this is so smart because this looks like $1 million, but I bet it wasn't. I mean, I bet this was actually a very effectively done and fairly cheap shoot because they basically got one great location, this kind of depressing palatial mountainside apartment, and then found ways to do a few of these slow panning shots and very effective visual images that make it incredibly compelling. The EP starts off with one of the strongest songs called Mountain with a View.
It's 7 a.m. and I'm on a mountain with a view.
And this is where you get some songwriting that I feel like is so much more stream of conscious than I'm used to hearing from a lot of Nashville stars. She says, it's 7 a.m. and I'm on a mountain with a view. I'm the only one alone at a table meant for 2. Big Sur looks beautiful this morning, and I should be missing you. I love that. I should be missing you. You're across the pond at a show, I think in Amsterdam, and the pictures look pretty, at least they do on your Instagram. We say good morning, then good night. I wonder if you even know where I am. In the short film, when you get to the end of the chorus where she's like, I think I'm lying about wearing the ring, you get this moment where she says, I think this is when it's over for me. And in that moment, she actually breaks the fourth wall, looks into the camera, and it's so clearly a response to Morgan. How long has it been over for you?
I think that this is when it's over for me.
It's the same thing that happens in Someone Like You by Adele. I love that moment where she looks up at the camera and starts singing.
Never mind.
Ooh, I always get chills at that. And in the bridge, you get some of this uncomfortable honesty where she's like,
Scream, I'm just like my parents and giving up easy.
but you never took the last flight to see me, and it looks like our ending ain't ending happily. I think this is when it's over for me. It's really the right mood setter of a song for this album, in which she kind of reflects like, we were just playing house, and we weren't this happy family, and marriage wasn't working for us for a long time. And part of what I like on this record is, she doesn't exactly villainize him. It's more like, this wasn't working. Although that's not to say she doesn't villainize him at all. She does. That comes a little later. The next track, Just Married, is stunning. I mean, one of the coolest lyrics I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, it was love, then it was just married.
The whole song is kind of playing with the idea of, you know, when you get in a limo after the wedding and it says just married, you have this love, but eventually she's not in love with him anymore. They're just married. It goes from the champagne bubbles and recency of being just married to the sort of pitiful mundanity of just married. This is a relationship in title only. And this is one of the moments in the short film and in the album where Kelsey's kind of recognizing her own lack of a desire to be domestic. You know, she's holding all the plates. Obviously, this sort of image of 1950s housewifery or something, and she's just, she can't balance it. She's like, this isn't me. This isn't what I want to do. I'm not good at fixing plates. Like, I'm not even good at staying still. I don't want this life. That same theme carries into the song Penthouse.
We moved to a place with a view off of 8th Avenue.
She talks about how her and her ex were trying to make a home out of a penthouse, but really, you know, they were traveling and they were partying and they were not this domestic type. And so she even buys a house with a yard for her dog Dibs, and like, maybe this will save our relationship and we'll be the type of people that want this life. But she's like, ultimately I didn't, and you can't make a home out of a penthouse.
Then you're playing home in a penthouse, baby.
And it's in this song that you get the title of the EP, Rolling Up the Welcome Mat. She's like, I know it hurts rolling up the welcome mat, essentially giving up the dream of having a real home together. And she also says it stings knowing you got half, which implies that, you know, she's the more successful of the two, and perhaps he got a lot of money in this divorce. Interlude is the most messy and conflicted moment on the album.
There's a thin line between love and hate, and it was love, but it wasn't fate. Now my mama's asking if I'm okay.
Rumors are flying. I want to set the record straight. My lawyer says I shouldn't talk about it. This town is criticizing me because I'm a woman, but I want to explain things, and now my whole life is a crater, and I'm the one standing beside it. I blew it up, and now I'm just crying on stage. It's all a mess, and it's this kind of... it's the turmoil of how she was feeling, perhaps even making this album. Now, I mentioned there is some villainization of her ex that happens, and that all happens on this song, Blindsided.
So were you blindsided, or were you just blind?
Which is definitely the poppiest of the tracks. It has a real beat behind it. I feel like this and Mountain with a View are going to be the two that are kind of the crowd favorites, but on Blindsided, she doesn't really buy the idea that you were blindsided by me leaving you. Like, you have to be blind. That's what the chorus is. Were you blindsided, or were you just blind? Because she says, you're saying you're lost. Well, that's lost on me, because you sat across me from years in therapy, and you should know how I was feeling. I mean, I said I wanted undignified Kelsey. Well, all the details on this song just are uncomfortably real. Were you on the other line or driving in your car? Were you hiding upstairs or playing your guitar? I'd go write a song, you'd go for a walk.
We had to get drunk to ever really talk.
And then in the bridge, you get this argument where she says, that one time in 2019, before that big show, we had a big fight. I slept on the couch, and then the next night, you put on a suit, and I put on a smile and sang about how it's okay to cry. I was dying inside. And I think that's a reference to her own song, Homecoming Queen. But the whole song is just saying, like, we were so unhappy and, you know, going through the motions of a relationship. That's certainly Kelsey's perspective on this EP, and definitely argued consistently throughout it. But right after that song comes the closer of the whole EP, which is called Leave Me Again.
I hope you're spending Christmas with your family.
And in this song, she is wishing well for her ex. I hope you are talking to your old friends, and I hope you're enjoying Christmas with your family, and I hope you got the Jeep that you wanted. And she says, and I hope I never leave me again.
And I hope I never leave me again.
It's a kind of twist on what you might be expecting, because she's saying like, I wasn't true to myself. And that's the element of any good divorce album, I think, is obviously you're going to have your finger pointed a little bit at the person that things didn't work with, but it's when you point it back at yourself that it really makes for interesting art. And that's what I think Kelsea does super well on this whole EP. She's like, I was going against what I wanted, and I've got to own that piece of things. Like, I wasn't being fully honest either with myself or with you, I guess. She says, staying only made me real good at pretend, and I hope I never leave me again. And then just the simple image of her sitting in the closet on Leave Me Again, it sort of mirrors the image of What I Have that came from Subject to Change. Because if you remember, What I Have is this song about like, I've got a warm body in bed and I'm so happy with what I have. And that song's beautiful, but it was odd to have it release right around the exact same time that her divorce was announced. And you're like, well, man, some of the songs on Subject to Change have not exactly aged well.
I got a warm body in bed.
I wonder if it's meant to mimic that video visually, but with a more accurate representation of where Kelsea's kind of at, and be like, well, actually, if I'm going to sit and play an acoustic guitar on the floor, this is kind of more my reality than, this happy meadow with butterflies. Overall, I find the music on this really compelling. I mean, there is something sad, fascinating, beautiful about just listening to someone honestly reflect on the messiness of their divorce. I think it's some of the best songwriting Kelsea Ballerini's ever done. There's no songs on here that tie up neatly with a bow the way I felt about Walk in the Park or Weather or Universe on Subject to Change. This is just messy and it's really real. I can hear all the arguments forever about, this is actually pop music, it's not really country. Fair. And I've made a lot of those arguments for many years, but this is great songwriting, okay? And her current single at radio is like one of the countryest things on the radio at the moment. And I was looking at the streams of this, I think it's gonna be freaking massive. I think this is connecting with people, because even just from the 1 or 2 days of streams that are on Spotify right now, I'm like, oh snap, people are really flocking to this album and listening to it. And obviously there's like a tabloid angle to it that's interesting, and yeah, it's interesting. I really like it. I think it's very artfully done. I think it's cool, and I think it's cool to see people take big chances. And she did. Kelsea's like a real artist. I just won't hear any more slander that like she's not a great, interesting artist, because this is great, interesting art, okay? And I know there's two sides to every story, and maybe Morgan will make a big response, and I kind of hope we don't go down a road of never-ending response albums to each other. But as someone that doesn't know the truth and is just reflecting on the art here, a really freaking cool EP. And she's at the kind of the top of her game right now, and it's kind of cool that we got, there was a while that we didn't have like true bona fide next superstars after Miranda and Carrie on the female side of country. And I just feel like this last 2 years, Carly, Lainey, Kelsea are just like firing on all cylinders, and that's kind of awesome to see. So that's kind of my loose thoughts. I mean, I kind of made this off the cuff without an outline or anything. I think Just Married is such a cool lyric, but I think my favorite song is probably Mountain with a View. I really like that song, and it hits me very just as a cool track. So let me know your thoughts on this EP, on Kelsea in general, and I'll be back to talk more new country very soon. Okay, bye.